Grab your coffee, kick up your feet. It is time for Yahoo Sports Daily. She is Caroline Fenton. I am Jason Fitz. We're hanging out with you on YouTube. We're also hanging out with you on TV channels everywhere. You can watch us on yahoosports.tv. We are all over the place. It is a Tuesday morning, and we have a ton to get to. So we will start the hour like we do every single hour. Caroline Fenton, 3 points. What is on your mind, my friend?
So much to get into today, but it starts at the U.S. Open because Venus Williams made her return last night at the U.S. Open after a 2-year hiatus from Grand Slam tennis. 30 years after her initial professional debut, and at 45 years old, she became the oldest singles player at the hardcourt tournament since Renee Richards did it at 47 years old in 1981. So quite the history being made there. And while it was an emotional and historic return for Venus, she ended up falling to the 11th seeded 29-year-old Karolina Muchova, 6-3, 2-6, and then finally 6-1. But she didn't fall down without a fight. She seeded the first 11 of the first 13 points, but she battled back to take the next 3 games in a row to take a 3-2 lead, to then surrender the next 4 games and then ultimately fall. But Muchova said she is a legend of our sport. She said it was an honor to share the court with her. And look, she has battled, Venus has rather, more than just on the court. She had surgery for uterine fibrosis at the end of 2024. About a decade ago, she announced that she's been diagnosed with Sjögren's syndrome, and I apologize if I totally butchered that pronunciation, which is a totally energy-zapping autoimmune disease that can cause joint pain. So Venus Williams has gone through the absolute gauntlet on the court, health-wise. Venus Williams is a certified living legend of the game. And when she was asked why she's still competing, she said, why not? That's just the mentality that not just Venus, but both Venus and Serena, the Williams sisters, have. She's dedicated her entire life to her craft. She's captivated and changed the sport. She's changed the sports world for good. So I will reiterate the feeling like Karolina Muchova had sharing the court with her and say that it is an honor to just be able to watch Venus Williams. We've seen so many legends come and go, so many legends decide to hang it up over the last few years, that we still have a legend in her own right in Venus, and it is an honor to be able to still get to watch her work her magic on the hard court. So U.S. Open, always delivering, but especially getting to watch Venus Williams do her thing.
We'll have U.S. Open updates for you throughout the course of the week. I have not had a honey deuce, but I did eat an inordinate amount of honeydew melon yesterday, which is the most
okay. Well, that's
melons.
Still
so there
counts.
We go. Now, that basically counts. Like I just bowl after bowl of honeydew. I love it. I'm addicted to it. Okay, let's get to my first point of the day. The Browns were comfortable carrying 4 quarterbacks into the season, supposedly, but we'll never know. We don't have to know now because there's been a trade. No, we're not talking Shador. We're not talking Dillon. We're talking Kenny Pickett. Kenny Pickett, the backup quarterback with experience in the room that has missed the majority of the preseason due to a hamstring injury, has been cleared to play, and it felt like almost as soon as he was cleared to play, there were questions about where he would play. Well, now we know the answer to that. He will be the backup quarterback for the Las Vegas Raiders. Now, the Raiders send a 5th-round pick, which is a little rich in the eyes of some, in exchange. But let's keep in mind that Aiden O'Connell, the current backup for the Raiders, injured his wrist in the last preseason game, resulting in 6 to 8 weeks that he's expected at least to miss with a broken wrist. So the Raiders were going into the season with absolutely no proven quarterback behind Geno Smith, and that's a pretty uncomfortable place to be in the modern NFL. They certainly hadn't seen enough from their rookie quarterback to feel as comfortable as Dillon Gabriel makes the Browns feel. This is a statement to how well Dillon Gabriel played throughout the course of the preseason, that they are comfortable in Cleveland going into the season with just him as the backup. It's also a statement that the Raiders understood, hey, God forbid anything were to happen to our starting quarterback, we need to have somebody in the room that can keep us competitive because, frankly, you got to have better than they had in that room. I'm not surprised by the move. I am encouraged by the move, and I think this is one of those rare trades that makes sense for everybody. Kenny Pickett was just going to be stuck in the middle of a conversation nobody really wanted to have week in and week out. Even if he got on the field, the question would be, well, is he really better than Dillon or Shador? Why battle all of that when he can go somewhere and just simply be a backup? Most importantly, will he play another snap of football before he gets traded? This is the second time he's been traded in a short period of time. We'll see how long he actually sticks on the Raiders roster. But in the meantime, backup quarterback movement continues. That's not the only Raiders news, by the way. Jacoby Myers made the news yesterday for the Raiders. We will get into that later in the show. But speaking of NFL news and notes, that gets us to our top point, my friend, and that is Terry McLaurin just getting the bag, just getting fat daddy rich. He got paid, and we all want it on this show. We've been rooting for him, and yesterday, no sooner than we got off air did we get the news that Terry McLaurin was going to be laying in a bed full of coins like Scrooge McDuck. Why? Because he signs a deal that gets him the money that, frankly, we all want. Look at that tweet there. On behalf of all people who enjoy watching Jaden Daniels throw football, thank you. Look, that's Caroline Fenton echoing the sentiment. He now is the sixth highest paid wide receiver in the NFL by average annual value. Sixth highest paid feels about right. This feels right, Caroline. Like the right player with the right team got the right deal, and everybody now could just relax.
Well, and I think there's two sides to this and two reasons why I love this and two reasons why I think the Washington Commanders made 100% absolutely the correct move. I'll start with the Terry McLaurin side of things. Terry McLaurin has been the lone kind of beacon of hope in this franchise for a long time when it didn't feel like there was a whole lot of hope for this franchise. Of course, before Jaden Daniels came in and before they drafted him in the top three picks last season. Terry McLaurin has done everything right. Terry McLaurin has never been a guy that has gotten in trouble off the field. Terry McLaurin has never been a guy who is overly loud or overly boisterous or overly somebody who creates distractions for the team. All Terry McLaurin has done is gone out, done his job, and competed and delivered at an incredibly high level. I don't think Terry McLaurin gets nearly enough credit for the amount of production and consistency that he has had on the field, just because before Jaden Daniels came in, he played for a pretty awful franchise. So I'm glad that Terry McLaurin gets rewarded for sticking with this franchise through a whole lot of suck. Now it gets to the second reason why I love this. The Jaden Daniels angle of it all. Like I said, the Commanders have been a pretty miserable franchise for a very long time. Jaden Daniels comes in, all of a sudden they get to the NFC Championship game and they're a legitimate Super Bowl contender. That we are now talking about the Washington Commanders as an actual championship contender and not just the butt of the joke in the National Football League. That's how big of an impact Jaden Daniels has made on this franchise. Jaden Daniels wouldn't have, in my opinion, made nearly the amount of impact on this franchise if he had not had Terry McLaurin. The last thing that you want to do for your young quarterback who has proven that he can be an MVP contender, that he can get you deep in the playoffs, the last thing that you want to do for that guy who's only coming into his second year in the league is shake things up. Take away his go-to receiver. Take away a guy that he's built a ton of rapport with. And to shake things up and take away that continuity that is so incredibly important for continuing to build the foundation for a young quarterback. So what he now has is continuity, is that go-to guy, is that guy who was such a massive focal point in this passing offense. So I think that this is correct. I said, whatever Terry McLaurin wants, give it to him. Adam Peters, just sign that man, because right now you are in a Super Bowl window. Push all of your chips into the middle for that Super Bowl window, and you have to deal with that in a couple of years, then fine, deal with it then. But for the right now, capitalize on the window that you have, and that's exactly what they were doing in signing Terry McLaurin. I cannot overstate how much I love this move, and the Commanders just prove to all of us that they want to be a Super Bowl contender, that they want to continue to capitalize on this window.
A couple of important notes about this contract, just for everybody's clarity. Number one, it is a 3-year extension, which means he has this year left on it, and then there will be 3 additional years. Number two, the actual extension itself has not yet been filed with the league, so we don't know how the guarantees work. What we do know is that the value, as reported, has been up to $96 million. So we will await the details of how much of that is signing bonus, how much of that is guaranteed, how that all plays out. What we know right now is that, at least in the press clippings, everybody can say they won. When we get the details of the contract, we'll have a better idea of how this all actually played out. But looking at how things play out, let's look at the NFC East, because certainly this has us thinking. You just mentioned Super Bowl contender. We're going to figure out which team has the edge in some important categories throughout the course of the NFC East. So I'll give you the category. We'll figure out which team has the edge. And let's start, Caroline, with playmakers. So when I'm saying playmakers, I'm talking specifically wide receiver, running back, tight end. That specific combination, which team in the NFC East has the edge, and why is it the Philadelphia Eagles? I'm just saying, we all know the answer here. Go ahead.
I mean, yeah, we always try and maybe show different sides of things and have different opinions, and we never want to agree. That doesn't make for a fun show. I just don't think that there is any sort of argument to be made that there is a better group of receivers, tight end, and running backs in the NFC East than the Philadelphia Eagles. And I'll even go as far as to say that I don't know how much of an argument there is to be made for a better wide receiver, running back, tight end, combo than the Philadelphia Eagles in the entire National Football League. I mean, look at the Saquon Barkley, who had an MVP caliber season last year. I mean, the Eagles have one of the best wide receiver duos in the NFL in A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith. And then you add in Dallas Goedert at the tight end position. I mean, the Eagles are one of the most terrifying teams offensively. And look, love Jalen Hurts. It's not just because of Jalen Hurts, it's because of all of the weapons he has around him. So it's the Eagles in the NFC East, and it's probably the Eagles in the NFL, Fitz.
Yeah, I 1,000% agree with this. This is part of what makes the Eagles so dangerous and why I feel like, in some ways, wildly, we're almost sleeping on who the defending Super Bowl champions are, because that entire skill position group is coming back, and they're going to continue to be absolutely dominant. So here's the thing. We will try and see if we differ on some of these, but we're also not going to fake it till we make it. Let's go next to the quarterback
That one's
position.
obvious.
All right. Is it? Go ahead. What do you got? Who's the team with the best quarterback in the NFC
Eagles
East?
Were obvious.
Okay.
The Eagles were
what
an
about
obvious
the quarterback
one. That
then?
was an easy one. But the quarterback position in the NFC East, it's a great question. Now, if you would ask me, Caroline, if you were, picking and drafting any quarterback in the NFC East to be your starting quarterback for the Fighting Fentons, a new expansion team in the NFL, thank you, very excited about it, I would say I take Jaden Daniels. But if you were to ask me who do I trust the more, I would say probably Dak Prescott, a guy who has seen more football, a guy who has been a consistent, starting quarterback for a consistent contender, at least in the regular season. Now, the postseason is a completely different story as far as Dak Prescott and the Dallas Cowboys are concerned. But I have more trust in Dak because we have so much more of a sample size, and he's been incredibly consistent. Who do I want for fireworks? Who do I want to invest in long-term now? Jaden Daniels. So I think that's it's kind of a cop-out for me because I'm taking two different guys, but two different guys for two different reasons.
Well, here's the thing. I'm going to admit my own hypocrisy here because, I love to talk about proof of concept. In fact, I think if you took a shot every time on Inside Coverage, I said the phrase proof of concept, you'd be very drunk over the years, right? I love proof of concept. And there's plenty of proof of concept about Dak. There's plenty of proof of concept about Jalen Hurts and exactly what he's capable as a quarterback. But I cannot change the video game recency bias of watching Jaden Daniels. Look, if I'm picking the quarterback for the Nifty Fitzies, the Nifty Fitzies are taking Jaden. I want the playmaking. I want the ability to just make the most chicken salad out of chicken. You know what is all over what Jaden Daniels did. He lifted a team last year that had no business, none, being in that playoff conversation because of just his ability to do the absolute incredible thing all the time. Now, I often say that young quarterbacks, they're not going to be defined by their ability to make off-schedule plays. They're going to be defined by their ability to run the offense. What did we see last year? Cliff Kingsbury did a masterful job getting Jaden so comfortable. I can't get out of my head the dominant rookie season we saw last year and just how enticing it was. Jaden Daniels did everything I wanted and more. So the Nifty Fitzies are, which, by the way, not nearly as intimidating as the Fighting Fentons. They're drafting Jaden Daniels, and we're hoping that playmaking can help all of our playmakers around. I still think the
Nifty Fitzies, they sound like a plucky little team that everybody loves. The Nifty Fitzies, they
sound like a bad
favorite.
Barbershop quartet. No, I went the wrong way.
Win Super Bowls,
we're a doo-wop group wearing leather jackets outside of a cafe. I want time to rethink the name. All right, what about the best head coach in the NFC East? Who do you give the best coaching advantage to?
I don't like this. Okay? I don't like it. It feels gross saying it. I don't even want to say it. Is it Brian Dable? I didn't say that. Nobody heard me. Can I take it back? Can we rewind? I know we're live, but can we stop? Can we pause? Can I just give myself maybe some time to walk around and think about what I just said and what I have done? But when you look around at the NFC East, look, I understand that Nick Sirianni and the Philadelphia Eagles just won a Super Bowl. But does anybody think that Nick Sirianni is really the engine that makes that team go? Does anybody really think that if you took Nick Sirianni into a team that was building to a team that didn't have a ton of playmakers, like if we insert Nick Sirianni to the Cleveland Browns, do we feel exponentially better about the Cleveland Browns, today than we did before Nick Sirianni got there? I don't think so personally. I just look at what Brian Daboll, I think, could potentially be building with the New York Giants. Now, look, I think that his job security and his future in New York is completely contingent on the development of Jackson Dart. But I kind of trust Brian Daboll with the development of Jackson Dart. I think what he's put around Jackson Dart, look, you bring in Russell Wilson, he is the starter, and he has said that. He has been very adamant that Russell Wilson will be the starter in New York because he doesn't want to throw Jackson Dart out there before he's ready. I think that is a brilliant and wise decision from Brian Daboll. He also brought in Jameis Winston to kind of be that mentor kind of guy for Jackson Dart. That, look, Russell Wilson, his job, be the quarterback. We don't need you to be a mentor for Jackson Dart. Jameis, bring him in. He's seen a lot of football. He's done a whole lot in the National Football League. We'll have him be that guy that not just can, but will be willing to kind of mold and shape Jackson Dart and really teach him, be the learning by osmosis. We've seen Brian Daboll do it with Josh Allen. Now it's a fair argument to be made. Was it more Brian Daboll or was it more Josh Allen? Well, I think we've seen enough proof of concept that it was probably more Josh Allen. But what I see Brian Daboll doing with the young quarterback, I think is the correct thing. I think it is the right thing. Does it mean that Jackson Dart's going to end up being a Hall of Famer one day? I don't know. Maybe, maybe not. I don't know. The rest is still unwritten, a la Natasha Bedingfield. But I think that what Brian Daboll is doing right now is the right way to develop a young quarterback. So is it more Brian Daboll or is it more just, I don't think there are really that many great coaches in the NFC East? Probably the latter, but I lean the Giants with the head coach.
I cannot give
There's just
the best
not really
award to somebody that I like.
exists.
Daboll's going to get fired. I just don't see any way that Daboll holds his job this year.
What if Jackson Dart ends up being a top 10 quarterback in the league over the next 2 years? He's not going to lose his job.
If I turn around and I go to the convenience store today and I buy a scratch-off lottery ticket and I pay my mortgage that way, that's a great story. But that's not what I'm banking on. Like, I'm not banking on Jackson Dart to suddenly have this awakening for Brian Daboll. Like, Brian Daboll feels exactly, the Giants feel like they're doing exactly what the Bears did last year. They're leaving dead man walking in because they just couldn't figure anything else out. And then when they have their quarterback, they'll end up firing dead man walking and finding somebody that can actually develop him. Like, look, if I'm grading the coaches in the NFC East, I give an incomplete to Shoddy because none of us have any idea. I give a D- to Daboll because it looks like he's about to get fired. Sirianni was on the hot seat a year ago. So I don't know. If Sirianni doesn't have good coordinators, then the Eagles stink. And if he has good coordinators, then the Eagles are good. A C maybe. There is clearly one good coach in this division you can bank on, and it's Dan Quinn. Like, I understand Dan Quinn wasn't a world beater in the minds of many as a hire, and I don't understand why. In fact, again, I'll go back to what some of the experts said on Inside Coverage for months before he got that job. The league understood he was going to have a real chance at success when he took his next head coaching gig. And what do you know? He brought in the right coordinators. What do you know? He built a team that is far exceeding any expectation. Like, I can the ugly on the resume of Sirianni. Just look back 2 years ago. I can find the pretty from the Super Bowl, fine. But I believe that Howie Roseman deserves 8 rings and Nick Sirianni deserves like half a one for those. Okay, so if the Eagles go out and they're trash this year, Sirianni's going to get fired. That's just the way it goes. I can make a case for Daboll getting fired. I can make a case for Shoddy not even getting the gig. I can't make a single case against Dan Quinn being the number one coach in this division because Washington suddenly, we spent a year talking about Washington for the Commanders on the field. Not for the drama off of it or just for the level of suck that we're used to for Washington. Like, Daboll turned the entire perception of the franchise around with the help of a young quarterback that we've already credited. But, not Daboll. Quinn turned the entire franchise around with perception. I just believe that I can't put enough weight in that. So real quick then.
But for the same reason you say, Howie Roseman and Sirianni, I say, okay, well, how much credit do we give the Commanders to Jaden Daniels versus Dan Quinn?
Well, I know I ain't giving any credit to Daboll. Like, my God. I'm giving zero credit to Dable in this argument. So maybe Eagles fans are going to kill us for Sirianni not beating first when he won the Super Bowl. But yeah, you're the same fans that were deciding your head coach should be fired a year ago. So just get out of my menchies. Best drama in the NFC East belongs to.
Oh, it's not even close. It's Jerry's team. It's the Dallas Cowboys. All that team is capital D drama. I mean, if it's not Micah, it's CD. If it's not CD, it's Dak. If it's not Dak, it's Zeke. If it's not Zeke, it's Emmitt Smith going back to the early 90s. It's always drama all the time in Dallas. That's how Jerry wants it. It is hands down not just the NFC East most dramatic team, it is the NFL's most dramatic team. It's the Dallas Cowboys.
Micah will be signed at the beginning of the season. The Cowboys will be just fine. And then we'll just have to talk about how much they suck compared to everybody's expectations. The drama belongs with the Giants, right? Because Dable is going to be on the hot seat from week one.
Does
if Russ struggles. Oh, yeah. If Russ struggles for a single drive, the crowd's going to be chanting, start the door, start the. That's going to happen. And then in the meantime, Jameis is going to be over on the sidelines eating people's fingers and looking weird. Like, there's going to be all sorts of weirdness out of everything that happens with the Giants. Like, the Giants are going to be drama because they have quarterback drama. And when you have quarterback drama, that is the best. That is the Real Housewives level drama in the NFL. We will do this same exercise, by the way, with the AFC North coming up later in the show. We'll see if we could agree on more there. See, it started easy and then it got heated. But coming up, from drama to actual analytics, specifics, Warren Sharp going to join the show next. We'll get his thoughts on some of the teams you're forgetting to keep an eye on Yahoo Sports Daily. You see it right there, the Sharp 2025 football preview. Fastest way to get smart for the 2025 season. And that is actually real. I got to say this. Warren Sharp going to join us right now on Yahoo Sports Daily. Caroline Fenton, Jason Fitz hanging out with Warren Sharp. And like, there are certain people that the entire industry just gravitates towards, like what they say and what they read and how they analyze it. Warren is one of those. We all read it. We all talk about it. It becomes a debate point for all of us. Warren, we appreciate your time. Tell everybody that picks up the book what they can expect when they grab it.
First of all, thanks for having me, guys. So close to the season. Love talking football, and this is going to be a fun segment with you all. But you can grab the book over at sharp.football. And actually, I've got a coupon code for you. You know, see the price there, $29, early bird sale. It's only $1 if you use the code DAILY. Your show is Yahoo Daily, so we're going to use the code DAILY. If you enter that code, you get the PDF for just $1. We got a couple weeks left before the season, maybe 11 days, 10 days. So get this book. It'll definitely help you. It's 32 team chapters, 586 pages, covering everything from betting to fantasy football to rankings to my predictions for all 32 teams. I think you guys are going to love it.
Yeah, you will. Trust
Love
me.
it.
We've had plenty of conversations about this morning already about Terry McLaurin. I want to start there and just get your thoughts, because I know the analytics have said a lot about the Commanders, and your research has said a lot about the Commanders. What do you expect from Washington this year?
Well, I definitely expect some elements of regression. I think they still have a good floor because of the division that they're in, and they're playing the Giants, and they're playing some of the Dallas Cowboys that are maybe due for a step back this season. But the Washington Commanders needed to get Terry McLaurin's deal done. They're pushing the ball down the field. When they do, 51% of the pass attempts that they throw that are over 20 yards go to Terry McLaurin. It's the highest target share on those types of passes for any team in the NFL. And so he was essential for this team. But look, they're going to regress in fourth down conversion rate. We know that they're not going to convert 87% again this year. That's going to result in fewer points theoretically for this team. They're probably going to regress in the caliber of quarterbacks that they're going up against, because they had a easy schedule of backup quarterbacks last season. That's probably not going to be the case this year. So it's a more difficult schedule. Teams have film on Jaden Daniels, how Cliff Kingsbury is utilizing him. I do love the addition of Deebo Samuel. I think he's going to really fill a void that team had last year with some of those easier dump off passes from Jaden Daniels that then can be turned into a ton of yards after the catch. But other than that, this is a team, they're not going to win 12 games again this season, but I still think they're going to be a fun and exciting team. And I am worried, quite frankly, about their defense, starting even in week 1 against the New York Giants. I just don't have a lot of confidence in that defense. They're going to have to figure a way to get more takeaways from opposing quarterbacks this season.
Another deal that we saw got done yesterday, Trey Hendrickson to the Cincinnati Bengals. And I look at the Bengals last year, they had to have been a statistical anomaly. I mean, Joe Burrow throws for almost 5,000 yards and they miss the playoffs. I mean, like, the history books cannot be kind to that one. So Trey Hendrickson re-signed. The defense last year in Cincinnati was still atrocious. What do the analytics say about the Bengals this year? I always say, don't say it can't get worse, because it absolutely can get worse, at least defensively. So will it get worse defensively for the Bengals, or are we going to see Cincinnati in the playoffs this season?
Well, they have a new defensive coordinator, and we're not entirely sure how that's going to come together this year. I know their prior defensive coordinator, beloved amongst the analytics community for some of the halftime adjustments that he would pull off. So we'll see how this defensive coordinator performs this year. I'm down on the Bengals overall in general, though, and has nothing to do with me not thinking Joe Burrow is one of the most elite quarterbacks in the NFL. I think this passing game is top tier. I just worry so much about that offensive line. I'm worried a little bit as a result about the run game, because while I think Chase Brown is a fun running back who's going to be great for fantasy football, I do worry about the fact that he's going to be playing behind that offensive line, which I don't think is very good. And the data shows it is not very good. It was the worst unit in the NFL last year from a pass block win rate perspective. And then defensively, this is one of the worst units in the NFL. And therefore, Joe Burrow is always going to have the pressure on him, even in the third and fourth quarters of games, even when he plays stellar, like you said, throwing for over 5,000 passing yards. He'll play a great first half, and the game he'll be up by 3 points at halftime, or he'll be losing by 3 points at halftime. And it's through no fault of his own. It's just the defense is terrible. And my biggest concern with them, therefore, is can Joe Burrow actually stay healthy all 17 games long and perform? Because he's going to have to carry this team. He's going to have to drag this team forward. They're going to rely so much on him and the passing game, even in the second half of games, because of that defense and the lack of their strong run game to close out games quickly. Therefore, I'm just worried about this team being able to sustain. They won 9 games last year. They won 9 games the year before. Their win total is 9.5 this year. I think they're going to be hard pressed to go over that. And again, it has nothing to do with me not liking Joe Burrow. I just think it's a tall order for a quarterback like Joe Burrow with this roster that's built around him and the schedule of opponents that they have to deal with this year.
The analytics may not be too incredibly high on those two teams, the Commanders and the Bengals. What about teams that might be taking a step forward? Which teams do the analytics think might be a potential playoff contender that nobody's talking about?
Oh, wow. Well, nobody's talking about. I'm not sure that nobody's talking about. I don't really have. I've been looking and searching and hunting for a team that I could bet the over on their win totals. And I really haven't come across a team that I'm in love with yet. The Atlanta Falcons were very close for me, but then they lost their left tackle and then they lost their backup left tackle within the span of like the last 2 weeks. And that concerns me a lot, protecting Michael Penix's blind side there. But that's a team. They have the run game. They have the offensive line. They have the receiving core. I think Michael Penix can be the guy that leads this team towards the playoffs. I think their win total is only at 7.5. I think that's something 8.5, depends on the juice. That's a team that could exceed that. And not as many people are discussing them down in the NFC South because the Tampa Bay Buccaneers are still down there, the defending Southern champions. But I believe that the Atlanta Falcons, their biggest issue is going to be that left tackle spot and then their defense, whom a lot of people around the league think this is one of the worst defenses in the entirety of the NFL, and that's going to be a problem for them. So I was looking at a sleeper dark horse team in the NFC South. I know a lot of people have gone with the Carolina Panthers. I was looking to pivot and go with the Atlanta Falcons, but I don't know that I'm going to be able to get there before the start of the season with Caleb McGarry going down just a week ago. So that was one. I was also looking at the Tennessee Titans. I do not think that this team can be as bad as they were last year. I think the addition of Cam Ward is massive. That offensive line is built up. Obviously, we know the head coach, his father, is the offensive line coach, Bill Callahan, one of the best offensive line coaches in the NFL. I think the run game is going to be vastly improved, and I love the swagger and just the work ethic and determination that Cam Ward brings to things. And for those reasons, I think that the Tennessee Titans have a decent shot at going over 5.5, and their schedule certainly is manageable. But the issue for me is I just haven't loved what I've seen in the preseason from this squad, and they're going to be dealing with a lot of tough opponents. And so I think I'm going to be choosing to back them a little bit more in the futures market on some player futures, as opposed to looking to go over this team from a win totals perspective.
You talk about win totals and futures, and a team like the Patriots, for example, that Vegas is just in love with. But what I find interesting is that we spend so much time talking strength of schedule. You calculate strength of schedule very differently than most of us that are just looking around. Number one, explain to everybody how it works, but then why make the change? Has it turned out to be more accurate for you?
It has been more accurate, and it's pretty obvious. The way that traditional strength of schedule is calculated is utilizing last year's win-loss results and this year's schedule. So a team that won only 3 games last year, that's factored into the strength of schedule for 2025. Well, we know that teams change year to year. They draft quarterback like a Cam Ward. They have a new head coach that's involved. They've signed a new free agent quarterback. They were one of the most injured teams last year. They had terrible luck in one-score games last year, or really great luck in one-score games last year. All of these different factors play into last year's record. John Madden, he would definitely believe in utilizing the traditional strength of schedule because he always said, you are what your record says you are. I don't believe in that at all. I don't think a team is what its record was last year. I think so much changes. I don't even think teams last year were necessarily what their record was. That's part of the reason I spend months researching in the book, trying to uncover things that most people aren't baking into why a team was good or bad last year and how that translates into 2025. So the way that I like to calculate strength of schedule is I look at the expectations in the futures betting market for the teams this year, and I factor that into the schedule that they're going to play this year. And so it's all forward looking, and I think that's the best way to do it. The other thing that I think is important to know as we're sitting here just over a week before the season starts is that while strength of schedule is great to analyze, and the way that I do it is obviously better, strength of schedule is just leading you in the right direction. It's still important to factor in strength of schedule throughout the course of the season. Now that once you're in week 8, you should be looking at, if you're looking the futures market, or even if you're looking at who a team plays next week, you should be calculating your statistics or some of your thoughts about a team based upon who they've played previously on that season and where those teams rank, and then look ahead at who they're going to play. So I'm constantly updating strength of schedule as we get more data in.
Last one before we get you out of here. We are very proud of our fantasy football lines and our fantasy football app over here at Yahoo Sports. So maybe from a fantasy football angle, who is someone that you think could really help out some of our friends that have their fantasy football drafts, me included, coming up this week, that could add some serious value maybe toward the back of the draft?
Well, I think a guy who's perfect for this question actually is Trevor Lawrence. He's definitely not one of the top quarterbacks that are going, and I've actually been very down on Trevor Lawrence throughout his career because he was billed as a generational talent, and he really hasn't lived up to that yet. But what I like about Trevor Lawrence is he's in year one with Liam Cohen, and the statistic that I'll pull from this one is that Trevor Lawrence has been throwing the ball inside the 10-yard line on only 40% of his primary early down opportunities. Now, that's below the NFL average, number one. He's been with previous different coaches, as we know. He was with Urban Meyer for a little while. He was with Doug Peterson. 50% of passing touchdowns come from inside of the 10-yard line. And Trevor Lawrence was down at a 40% pass rate pretty much for most of his career. Last year, Liam Cohen had Baker Mayfield at a 57% pass rate inside of the 10-yard line. And it's part of the reason why Baker Mayfield set a career high with 41 passing touchdowns. Trevor Lawrence has been hovering right around 21 to 24 passing touchdowns in that range. His passing touchdowns prop this year is 22.5. I took the over in his passing touchdowns prop. I also altered him at 30 plus. We obviously know that they have a new stud receiver. I still love Brian Thomas Jr. They have tight ends there. They have backs that can catch the ball out of the backfield. I think Trevor Lawrence goes over this passing touchdowns prop. And as a result, I think from a passing points perspective in fantasy football, he's definitely a great guy to grab at the tail end of your drafts. He's got an easy schedule, some nice matchups there. I think Liam Cohen is going to do wonders for his career. I think it's going to be the best year of Trevor Lawrence's career in 2025.
I can assure you that your favorite media personalities are using Warren as a resource constantly. We appreciate your time. Check out the book. The 2025 football preview is out. Use the code DAILY. Get a little bit of savings there. Warren, we appreciate you hanging out with us. Thanks for the great work that keeps all of us so smart.
Thanks so much, Warren.
Thanks for having me. Good luck this year.
We'll need all the luck we could possibly get. All right. From luck here to luck in college football, Bryce Underwood named the Week 1 starter. How much luck does Michigan need to make the most of it? We'll break it down next. Yahoo Sports Daily. Michigan has named true freshman Bryce Underwood, who signed with the Wolverines on a reported $12.5 million NIL deal as its starting quarterback. The five-star QB who grew up just outside of Ann Arbor was the number one recruit of the 2025 class. Welcome back to Yahoo Sports Daily. Caroline Fenton, Jason Fitz. And look, I don't want to downgrade anything of what Bryce accomplished in being named the starter at Michigan. I think it's important to note that this is certainly something he was in the running for. And from day one, there was an expectation that he might be able to win the job. And anytime a true freshman wins the job, I'm just reminded about the fact that, just 6 months ago, the biggest concern many of them had was a promposal. And now they're going to stand in front of 100,000 people trying to figure out how to win an important college football game. So there's a lot to this. But Caroline, it is impossible to look at this and not think about the fact that $12.5 million NIL deal is a new part of modern college football. Like, there are going to be eyebrows raised saying, of course, you got the guy that got paid the most wins the starting job. Like, this is exactly what happens in the NFL. Like, this is just true to life.
Yeah, obviously at this point it's neither here nor there, but to need to pay a kid $12.5 million a year when he grew up a hop and a skip from campus feels very un-Michigan. But hey, good for him. Good for Bryce Underwood. And look, he's a good kid. He's a mature kid. He is a heck of a football player. Clearly, right? When he's being paid $12.5 million at just 18 years old, and he's earned the starting job at Michigan. I think it's a testament to the kind of person, the kind of kid, the kind of player that Bryce Underwood is. But I have to think that, in a pre-NIL world, before that we had, obviously players were probably still getting paid under the table, but before we knew what they were getting paid, would a true freshman quarterback be named the starting quarterback at Michigan? And not just the starting quarterback at Michigan, but really kind of the savior at Michigan after kind of a rough year last year, coming off of winning the national championship. Now there's all of the controversy surrounding the Connor Stallions of it all, that Sharon Moore will be suspended. It was a self-suspension this year. He'll be gone for 2 games this year. That there's just a lot of stuff surrounding the Michigan football program. So now not only is Bryce Underwood being paid $12.5 million for his services, he's now viewed as the savior, the kid, the 18-year-old who was supposed to erase all of the wrongdoing that's been going on at Michigan over the last couple of years. So would he be the starting quarterback as a true freshman if he wasn't being paid $12.5 million a year? I don't know. He's not the first true freshman starting quarterback in the history of college football, but I lean no. I lean that he wouldn't. I lean that they would probably take a more conservative approach to Bryce Underwood, let him sit on the bench, let him learn, let him at least have 1 year to figure out life in college, figure out where he's walking to class, to figure out life on his own, much less life in college football in the Big Ten. But now I don't know how Sharon Moore and the entire Michigan coaching staff could justify sitting Bryce Underwood on the bench for $12.5 million a year. So Fitz, I think that NIL, and now that we have an actual dollar amount attached to some of these players and these quarterbacks, it's rushing their development because now they want to see an immediate return on their financial investment.
The hard part, look, he beat out Mikey Keene. Mikey Keene, a grad transfer with a bunch of experience. Mikey wasn't available in spring practice. For context here, Bryce was. So, is it fair to say that Bryce went out and won the job? Probably. The concern that I have is in the 12.5, the concern that I have is just the reality of the way the world works. The first time he throws a big interception that cost Michigan a game, the screams of, we paid $12.5 million for that? Like, that's what's going to happen. And it's the unfortunate part of NIL. Look, I want every kid to go out and make generational wealth. And so good for him, especially because, come on, we have no idea how many quarterbacks will actually make it to the end. We always think that the top recruit's going to end up being an NFL superstar, but that doesn't happen. So let him go out and make his money today. I love it. I want the kids to be successful. I think we also just have to accept the fact that along with that comes a certain standard that you're going to be held to by not just every fan in the stands, every fan watching at home, every real-life Buddy Garrity. If you ever watch Friday Night Lights, remember, the TV show, you have Buddy Garrity coming in the car dealer asking Coach, why is this guy not playing? And, talking to Coach in his ear about things. Well, when you've got somebody making $12.5 million, it's tough for the coach to decide not to start him. And frankly, it brings the expectations to a different level from the first minute they step on the field. And look, that's fine. Like, he's a millionaire at this point. So I'm not asking for anyone to show tremendous sympathy for, what that looks like pressure-wise. But I do think there's a real conversation of, what that feels like. And frankly, through the growth, it will make him a better quarterback. Throwing interceptions in big moments sometimes just makes you a better quarterback. You got to grow through some of these things to become the best version of yourself. My concern is that the $12.5 million, look, ultimately is going to change the way that everybody views the progression and the process for the quarterback. I don't think college football is broken. I think college football is better than it's ever been. I think college football players should go out and get paid massive amounts of money. I love every ounce of it. I do think we also just have to accept that if he has a bad run for a month, not only is every booster and every car dealer, every kid on campus is going to turn around saying, yep, you're making $12.5 million for that. Like, it is a different level of pressure that he's going to have to learn to live in.
You could ask the question, does NIL rush the development of young quarterbacks? Maybe it could. Maybe Bryce Underwood and his NIL deal is, he's going out in the field maybe earlier than in a pre-NIL world he wouldn't have. But also I look at Arch Manning, right? He was able to sit on the bench for 2 years and develop. So how much does it rush the development of young quarterbacks? I think that's a program by program, team by team basis. I think it more so, though, rushes the court of public opinion, because now you expect greatness from a quarterback that is getting paid like a great one, like an elite one. And I think we saw that with Nico Iamaleava at Tennessee. I witnessed it firsthand. I was living in Nashville. I was surrounded by Tennessee fans, and they all knew that, now $4 million a year sounds like chump change compared to his 12 and a half, but still, Nico Iamaleava was one of the highest paid quarterbacks at that time. And everyone expected Nico to be a perfect, ready-made elite prospect right away. And that's just not realistic. I think that NIL deals now empower football fans more than ever to critique, like you just said, we're paying X million dollars for this, when we never would have done that previously. We would have extended more grace to young quarterbacks, but now they're getting paid. That grace doesn't exist as much as it used to.
Yeah, and it's the NFL. I mean, think about it. Dylan Gabriel may have played his way into the backup job. And we say, oh my God, that's amazing. The third-round quarterback may have played himself into the backup job. Jackson Dart might be the backup. And we're sitting there saying, oh, I don't know. Yes, they're different players, but also they were drafted in different spots. If Cam Ward was being sat for the first season, everybody would be saying, wow, but you drafted him first overall. This is it. Like, at some point we have to just accept, and we have the opportunity, Yahoo, to be around a lot of the high school athletes, and you've got high school kids now that are making 7 figures a year in NIL. Like, the game has changed, and now it's no different than, there was a period in my life where if you were a 15-year-old that wanted to make it in the music business, you had plenty of time to do it. Now, if you're a 15-year-old that doesn't have 1 million followers, you're behind, right? Like, the whole world and the way we treat talented kids has wildly changed. And look, I hope the best for Bryce Underwood. The difference between Bryce and Arch is always going to be Texas was in the national championship conversation. Ain't none of us believe that Michigan this year is going to be in the national championship conversation. So Michigan fans are going to be anxious to see him come out and perform right away. There is no doubt about that. Okay, from Bryce Underwood, who obviously has plenty of legacy to build, to Bill Belichick. Is he actually tearing down the legacy he's already built? We'll tell you about it next on Yahoo Sports Daily.
that there was a lot of interest in doing let's call it season-long documentary or season-long show about North Carolina football. And so I'm excited really to share with you that we will be doing that with Everwonder and Hulu that will showcase our football program.
That's Bill Belichick talking to his team about the fact that there will be a Hulu documentary about North Carolina football this year. Yahoo Sports Daily, Caroline Fenton, I'm Jason Fitz. I'm just still floored. Even watching him at the podium tell everybody that they're doing this, that they're making this documentary, it just absolutely flies in the face of everything we've ever been told about Bill Belichick from day one about distractions, Caroline Fenton. And it raises this real question about who Belichick is today. Like, does this all tarnish his legacy? Like, I realize that we're not allowed to, it feels like we're not allowed to question Belichick because of the rings that he has. But man, it just feels like the whispers are going to become yells, are going to become roars if this North Carolina thing goes poorly.
It is wild to me that I don't think that we've seen a sports figure or former coach tarnish their legacy more in the span of less than a decade than we have with Bill Belichick. I mean, everything that Bill Belichick has built his legacy on was winning Super Bowls and creating championship culture. And there was always that question of who deserved more credit, who, won those Super Bowls more. Was it Belichick or was it Brady? And I think that the post-Brady era in New England kind of told us everything that we needed to know about who deserved more credit for those Super Bowls. Because Tom Brady went on to win another Super Bowl, and Bill Belichick went on to essentially get fired in New England. I mean, it was rough after Brady left in New England. So I think that we all have a clarity there. Now, that's not to say that Bill deserves zero credit for the championships in New England. I think that it's fair to say, though, that I credit Brady more for those championships in New England more than I credit Bill Belichick. That brings me to the second part. The second part of Bill's legacy was building a championship culture. That every player that played under Belichick in New England when they were winning championships said, look, it sucked. Life sucked in New England, but the fun was winning championships. That there was this culture of kind of edging each other. That there was one episode of the Brady docuseries where Teddy Bruschi and Mike Vrabel and so many players on those championship teams talked about they were the edgers. That, you come in at 6:30, I come in at 6. Oh, you did 15 reps, I did 20. They were constantly trying to edge each other out. And I think that Bill Belichick built that kind of culture in New England. Well, what kind of culture is he building at North Carolina? He built a culture of zero distractions, no distraction. Your life is football. Well, now Bill Belichick is creating distractions in North Carolina with a 24-year-old girlfriend who is posting. Look, Bill can do whatever he wants in his love life. That's not an issue. But she's posting on Instagram screenshots of emails that come from Bill Belichick, that she's been nothing but a distraction at practice when she's standing on the sidelines. Can you imagine Bill in New England if a player tried to bring their girlfriend on the sidelines at practice? He would be irate. And now this Hulu docuseries, Bill Belichick hated the media in New England, and now he's inviting them into their practices in their locker room. It's so anti-Belichickian to the point that I don't even think I know who Bill Belichick is anymore, Fitz.
He, at one point, reportedly wasn't letting Tom's trainer into the facility because he didn't want Tom's trainer around, right? Like,
yes!
That's the Bill Belichick we're all used to. And now he's letting his girlfriend come. Look, I don't care who you sleep with. That's not my business. I care about what kind of football team he puts together right now. And if the question is Bill Belichick tarnishing his legacy, I think the answer to that is he already has. Like, when Brady and Belichick won their last Super Bowl, it was, well, it's the GOAT quarterback and the GOAT coach together at once. And I was one that was loudly screaming at the time. It doesn't have to be him that's responsible. It can be both of them together. But what have we seen since they were torn apart, right? Since they separated, we've seen virtually nothing of meaning from Bill Belichick, which has already taken him from that, oh, Belichick's the greatest of all time, to, well, he's one of. And that's a big difference. Like, going from being he's the GOAT to being he's one of the GOATs. Like, can you really put Belichick in a different conversation than some of the other coaches that went out and had dynastic Super Bowl runs? Is Belichick's work more influential to the next generation of football than Bill Walsh's was in the San Francisco era of the 80s? I don't know. But what I do know is right now, based on what we have today, if we're just talking about body of work with the quarterback, is there really no conversation here that Andy Reid today is a better coach than Bill Belichick? I mean, I understand it's Reid and Mahomes, just like it was Belichick and Brady. Like, they're at least in the same category. And the fact that we now can lump other coaches in the same breath as Belichick shows you where this has gone. And yeah, if he wins 6 games, 7 games, and Carolina is distracted the entire time and they don't play incredible football, yeah, that is all going to tarnish his legacy. The first time I ever met Herm Edwards, I wasn't even in this business yet. And I was talking to Herm backstage in an event. And he said, you know what, young guy? Great human being. He said, you know what? He's like, I want to teach you something you need to know right now. If you have a quarterback, you're a great coach. And if you don't have a quarterback, you're not a great coach. And like, as oversimplified as that is, when Bill had the greatest quarterback of all time, unstoppable. When Bill doesn't have the greatest quarterback of all time, stoppable. North Carolina does not have the greatest quarterback of all time. So yeah, I think there's a huge chance through all of this that Belichick simply becomes one of the greatest coaches we've ever seen, which in and of itself tarnishes the legacy of somebody that was considered a GOAT just a few years ago.
I will ask you, how much do we credit Tom Brady for Bill Belichick's gold jacket?
A lot. I think, look, coaching is different for everybody.
I say
has
more
to
than
receive
50%.
Coaching differently. Yeah, 100%. You have to have a special person, like 75, 80%. You have to have a special person that can receive what you're saying and then can be that guy in the locker room, can be that guy. Like, as much as Tom Brady, just quick clarification, it was a fumble. There's no such thing as the tuck. Now that I've admitted my bias, like Tom Brady, when you watch the documentary they did on him, his willingness to listen to his teammates about what he needed to change in his personal life, his willingness to listen to his teammates about when to be level-headed and when not to, his willingness to learn from veteran players in a way where he looked around and said, yeah, I think it was Willie McGinnis. It was like, you need to take better care of yourself. So he creates TB12. Like, what we've learned is that Tom is wired different than anybody, which means he took Bill's message and Bill's overall philosophy and he integrated it in a way that I don't believe any other quarterback in the history of the NFL could have or would have. So yes, 100%. Belichick, if he's not giving this to somebody that receives it the way Brady has, Belichick is nowhere near where we see him today.
I just see what he's doing now at North Carolina. And look, North Carolina could go on a run this year. They could go undefeated and win a national championship. And then I look like a total doofus because Bill Belichick just proved all of us wrong. But I would be willing to put significantly more money on, will Bill Belichick be successful at North Carolina? Yes or no? I would be much more willing to put significantly more money on no, Bill Belichick will fail at North Carolina, much more than I would say, yes, Bill Belichick will be successful at North Carolina. And that's even understanding that the definition of success at North Carolina is much different, and the threshold for success is much lower at North Carolina, maybe than than a Clemson and Ohio State and Alabama, so on and so forth. I don't think this is going to look good, and I think that the legacy for Bill Belichick will be far more tarnished at the end of this year than it will the previous one.
Yeah, somebody in the YouTube chat came in and said Hulu's just trying to hang with Netflix. Now, that is true. Always follow the money, my friends.
Well,
always,
of course,
follow the money.
Because I'm tuning in.
I'll agree on that. Keep the comments coming in the YouTube chat. We appreciate you guys hanging out with us there. Speaking of following the money, I cut them off too early. They did great work getting it. I didn't get it in. Trey Hendrickson following the money for the Bengals. We'll tell you about it next on Yahoo Sports Daily. With the thunder of the gods, we hit hour number 2 of Yahoo Sports Daily. She's Caroline Fenton. I'm Jason Fitz hanging out with you. We got a lot to get to, so let's start this hour like we do every single hour with 3 points. Caroline Fenton, what is on your mind, my friend?
The big dumper is on my mind today. The big dumper has been on my mind all season long. The big dumper continues to prove why he should be Major League Baseball MVP rather. Cal Raleigh becomes the very first player in the 2025 season to hit 50 dingers just one day after Cal Raleigh hit the most home runs of any primary catcher in the history of Major League Baseball. He hit number 48 and 49 on Sunday against the Athletics, and he hit that 50 threshold last night. Now, Cal Raleigh now is just 6 home runs away from meeting Ken Griffey Jr.'s franchise single season record with 56. And it's not even September. We have just over a month left to go in the Major League Baseball season. He's the second Mariner after Ken Griffey Jr., of course. So I don't know if Fitz approves of his nickname or not. That doesn't matter because I approve of the big dumper and Cal Raleigh and what he has done for the Seattle Mariners team. He has become must-watch TV. And Fitz, I don't remember the last time the Seattle Mariners were must-watch TV. So congratulations to Cal Raleigh, who just continues to put together one of the most electric slugging seasons that we have seen in quite some time. He just continues to crawl up the history books.
We need to come up with a fine system on this show, and then at the end of the year, we'll donate the fine to like the Humane Society, given both of our loves of dogs. But like Juicy is a fine. Right, that's a Caroline Fenton fine from our time working.
At least I don't say moist. Okay,
no, moist is better than Juicy. And the big dumper. Yeah, yes, moist is a cake. Juicy is just weird. A big dumper, worst
Juicy's
nickname in all of sports.
Big Dumpy.
Big Dumpy? Now that's we're big
Dumpy.
Big Dumpers.
Yeah.
We got
that
Cal,
is what I will now affectionately call Cal Raleigh. Not just the big dumper. I'm going to give his nickname a nickname. The big dump.
Big Dumpy.
The big Dumpiana.
I'm going to try and get
Dump
to point
Queen
number
of
2,
Seattle.
and I don't know how this is going to go. I don't know if I approve of Big Dumper. I definitely don't approve of Big Dumpy. All of this. Cal, we need to have Cal on the show. So we can workshop with him. Mike
We will
Goldfarb,
send an
producer
official
extraordinaire.
invitation.
Let's clip this
Cal
off
Raleigh.
and let's send this officially to Cal. And Cal,
Ooh,
I'm pleading with you,
Dunkin'
please, love of God.
Spice latte.
What
Thank
are we
you,
doing?
Mike Goldfarb.
So many. No.
Yeah.
Okay. I don't. There are too many dumb jokes.
It's
Okay.
Dunkin' Spice latte season.
Okay.
Happy fall.
I'm gonna try not to get fired. All right, let's get to point number 2. What's on my mind this morning? And it's drama, as we like to have, but this time it's between YouTube TV and Fox. Okay, so they're in a dispute, and if you've had any sort of a streaming service, a cable service, you've lived through this before. But YouTube sent a note out to all of their carriers, of which, to be fully transparent, I'm one. I use YouTube TV. And it says news. They're in a carriage dispute ahead of the college football season. The deadline to reach an agreement is Wednesday at 5 p.m. Eastern. Auburn at Baylor and Texas at Ohio State could be impacted, not the least of which also could take us all the way up. If this were to continue to last, it could take us all the way up to football season. In fact, unbelievably, I want to read you this. This is from the email they actually sent out to people with YouTube subscriptions. It says, if Fox becomes unavailable, you can continue to watch their sports news and shows by signing up for Fox One. Later on, it says, thank you for your patience. We hope YouTube TV continues to be your service of choice, but we understand some members may want to cancel the subscription. As always, you have the ability to pause or cancel anytime. YouTube is flat out saying, hey, go pay for this other app or cancel. We don't care. We're not going to deal with it. I am stunned. Joe Pompliano, who you see tweeting there, will join us tomorrow on the show. We will ask him about it. I'm not stunned that they're in a dispute. This happens all the time. They're trying to save money. Fox is trying to make more money. This is modern media. Sports do really well. It's why we have a show. So I understand that sports still move the meter, and they want to get as much money from everybody as they possibly can. But at the same time, we have to acknowledge that YouTube's flippant tone throughout the course of this discussion of essentially, hey, you don't like it, go ahead and cancel. You don't like it, go pay for a side subscription, is what's stunning to me. Now, and right now, it's easy for everybody to say whatever they want. Let's see what that tone feels like if Texas and Ohio State isn't shown. Let's see what that tone feels like if we get all the way to the NFL season and we're sitting on the first week of NFL games and local Fox channels aren't able to air games. The minute that happens, I have a sneaking suspicion everybody will figure out how to come to their senses and come to an agreement. And in the meantime, here's what we also know. Eventually, YouTube and Fox will likely come to a deal. They'll probably all raise their prices yet again. And the real person left hanging isn't Fox. It isn't YouTube TV. It's me and it's you. All right, let's get to our top point, Caroline Fenton. The top point on at all the land, speaking of money, is Trey Hendrickson going out and getting his. I mean, again, we root for players to get paid. Trey got paid in a big way yesterday. Finally, the dispute is done between he and the Bengals. He gets a $14 million raise for this year, which boosts him to $30 million according to sources. And he is still scheduled to become an unrestricted free agent after the season. So he's now 6th on average annual value for edge rushers. Feels like they've figured out a way to at least get this done where he gets more money today. And then they're just going to figure out next year when they figure out next year.
Which I think is probably the correct approach. I think one thing that made the Bengals nervous was committing long-term, and not just committing long-term, but committing guaranteed money to Trey Hendrickson. So I think this is a good way of meeting in the middle because Trey Hendrickson wanted those 2 years. It was clear the Bengals, even though they gave it to Jamar Chase, they didn't want to give more than 1 year. So this feels like a meeting of the middle of, look, we feel like right now we can win a Super Bowl. We feel like we cannot do it without you. And it also would be stupid for us to trade you because what's the point of doing that when we are in a win now mode? And the only thing that would really be worth it for the Bengals to get back for Trey Hendrickson in a trade right now is a 2026 draft pick. That doesn't help the Bengals right now. So I think this was a good meeting of the middle. Look, we want you back next year. We want you back this upcoming season. We will scratch your back for right now because we know that you are going to scratch ours at least on the football field. So what this doesn't do is make the Bengals better because you don't re-sign the same players and get better. What this does avoid though for the Bengals is getting worse. Because I've heard so many people say, well, the Bengals defense can't be worse. Of course it can. It can always be worse, especially if you don't have the leading sacker in the National Football League. So this doesn't change the way I feel about the Cincinnati Bengals and what they can do on the field. But what it does do, though, I think is probably change my perception and change the public perception about the Bengals' willingness to pay their players. They paid Joe Burrow, they paid Jamar Chase, they paid T. Higgins, and now, at least in the short term, they have paid Trey Hendrickson. So the Bengals at least are avoiding doing the stupid thing by doing the smart thing, and that is bringing Trey Hendrickson back for the 2025 season. But my question, though, is, Fitz, well, they don't get better because, again, you don't re-sign your same players and get better. They don't get worse. Can the Bengals get better? I know they bring in a new defensive coordinator. They make a change at the top, but the roster, the players, is there a move out there to be made where the Bengals can actually get better defensively?
No, I think right now they are who they are, and unfortunately for Cincinnati, you're right. It doesn't likely get a lot worse. Like, I kept thinking about that as you said it. Like, you don't want to watch this defense take a step back. Unfortunately, it's just a multi-year project to get this defense where it needs to be. Now, Al Golden is a really respected defensive coordinator, and there are some around the organization, as we've been told on this show, that believe simply by bringing Al Golden in, things will change. I would just remind everybody that a few short years ago, there was a concept that Lou Anarumo, the former defensive coordinator, was actually going to be a head coaching candidate somewhere because that defense was above its skis for like 2 seconds. So how much of a difference can a coordinator make? It's substantial. And how much can we take away from the preseason? Probably very little because, frankly, they don't want to show too much on film of what they're going to be. I get all of those arguments. But I think the most realistic argument you can make for the Bengals this season is that their defense will start very slow. It will look like a work in progress for quite a while. Mm-hmm. And then over the course of the year, it'll get better. I just think that's the only hope, is that over the course of the year, everybody gets more comfortable. And then maybe next year, finally, with all of these things sort of in the rear view, maybe next year they're able to address it in a way. And maybe Shamar Stewart just turns out to be the sort of rookie that makes such a wild impact that in and of itself, that brings you something. You're going to have to be better on the defensive line to mask the rest of the deficiencies on that defense. So maybe those are the positive takeaways that you can have for the Bengals, but I don't feel great about it, Caroline. I don't feel great. Speaking of the defense, let's go through this exercise. All right, we're going to figure out who has the AFC North edge? So by division, which team has the edge in defense? Who do you see as the best defense in this division?
The Bengals. I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. I just wanted to see your reaction. But I'm sorry, Bengals fans, if you don't like that or you think that was mean of me, but that's how bad your defense is, okay? It's a joke. That's how bad it is. I'll go the Steelers. I don't know if I'm saying the Steelers because that is what it will be, or that's what I think it will be, or if that's what I think it should be. The Steelers have been top 5 in defensive spending over the last 4 years. So the Steelers defense better be damn good. And the Steelers bring back a ton of production defensively. Of course, Cam Hayward had his kind of mini hold in. I don't think that's going to be an issue or an overly big distraction for the Steelers defense as a whole, but they do bring back Cam Hayward. They bring back TJ Watt, obviously right there between Cam Hayward and TJ Watt. That's 20 sacks that you're returning from last year just in those two alone. They made some strange moves in the secondary, swapping old expensive players for other old and expensive players. So I don't really know what that's expected to do there, but still, I don't think that secondary is going to take a massive step back. I mean, the Steelers were an elite run defense last year. I expect them to be an elite run defense this upcoming year as well. They were top 10 defense in the NFL this past year. I expect them to be a top 10 defense in the NFL this upcoming year. So I think with all the questions that you might have offensively as far as the Steelers are concerned about what Aaron Rodgers looks like this upcoming season, what he looks like getting very little offseason work in his first season with this first and probably lone season with the Pittsburgh Steelers, I think one thing that you can depend on as far as the Steelers are concerned is that they're going to be elite defensively and they're going to be reliable defensively.
So I agree with everything you just said about Pittsburgh and that strength. But to me, it's not the best defense in the division. That belongs to the Ravens. And last year, I think we had to accept that last year was a bit of an adjustment, the defensive coordinator position for them in the early portion of the season. Obviously, Michael McDonald leaves, becomes the head coach for Seattle. Zachary Orr comes in, first-time defensive coordinator for Baltimore, which always has a bit of a learning curve. And the funny thing is, by the end of the year, it was, again, what we're used to from Baltimore, a really, really solid defense. They have Malachi Starks. Jair Alexander is going to be healthy this year. They've got a defensive line that's really deep. I thought it was interesting. The pressure rate last year was average, but they were second in sacks, and they have more talent up front now. So I just feel like at all levels of the defense, the Ravens are just a little bit better, and they're a little bit more familiar in year 2 of this system to give them a real advantage, I think, to see the best of what that defense can be. So Baltimore's still the cream of the crop and one of the best teams in the AFC, but certainly the best team in their own division on the defensive side of the ball for me. Although a lot of credit to Pittsburgh, the only other team that belongs in that conversation. What about the quarterback position? This is where things get sparsy, right? Like, because the quarterback, who has the best quarterback in the AFC North?
This is the age-old question, not the age-old question, but this is like the major question that I think has been surrounding the AFC over the last few years. It's, look, Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen, Joe Burrow, Lamar Jackson, the best 4 quarterbacks in the league, and you can rank them however you want to, and you're not wrong. But I lean and pay no attention to the helmet behind me. Joe Burrow. Joe Burrow is the best quarterback in that division, and I think the Cincinnati Bengals have the best advantage at the quarterback position. Look, if the Bengals defense was an absolute doo-doo, we would be talking about Joe Burrow much differently than we are now. We're kind of overlooking the Cincinnati Bengals because their defense is so atrocious. Look, Joe Burrow had the best statistical season of any quarterback in the National Football League this past year. If the defense wasn't poop, then Joe Burrow would have been the league MVP last year. We wouldn't have been having this, Josh Allen versus Lamar Jackson, who deserves MVP conversation that we had last year. It would have gone to Joe Burrow. I trust Joe Burrow, I think, more than any other quarterback in the National Football League, more than I trust Patrick Mahomes. That's not to say that I think that he's a better quarterback than Patrick Mahomes, but there is just this inevitability that surrounds Joe Burrow that I think is unprecedented over any other team or any other quarterback in the National Football League. So I go Joe Burrow. But that's not to say that it's Joe Burrow is far and beyond the better quarterback. That's just where I rank these quarterbacks right now. I think that's a hands down top 4 in the league and in the AFC. I give Joe Burrow the slight edge.
A friend of the show, Frank Schwab, often says to me that Lamar Jackson is putting up Mount Rushmore forever at the position numbers. Not just like right now, that Lamar Jackson might be already one of the best quarterbacks we've ever seen, it's stunning when we all see it and when I say it out loud. But last year, 67% completions, basically 4,100 yards, 41 touchdowns to 4 picks. 41 to 4. That doesn't include 4 touchdowns on the ground, too. Lamar Jackson could make the case that should have already been a 3-time MVP. I mean, when you think about Lamar and where he is already in the elite club of being a 2-time MVP, I understand this is where everybody wants to yell and scream about the playoffs. I will continually remind you, before you can complain about the playoffs, you have to at least factor in the 17 games that got you there, right? So for me, if I'm talking about one of these 2 quarterbacks, as much as it's a little bit flavor of ice cream, because I do think you're talking about 2 of the 3 best quarterbacks in the NFL, 2 of the 4 best quarterbacks in the NFL, and 2 of the 4 best quarterbacks this generation will ever see. Like, that's the weirdest part about this. I think you have 4 future Hall of Famers playing in the AFC at least right now, all at the same time. So understanding that all of them belong in some sort of, in my mind, gold jacket conversation, if I got to pick one, I don't think we've seen anything like what we've seen from Lamar. And I know it hasn't led to Super Bowls necessarily, but God, Lamar is it for me. Lamar is it for me as the number one. What about playmakers though? Because you've got wide receiver, running back, tight end combined in playmakers. Where do we give the edge in this one?
I think I have to stick in Cincinnati. I am on to Cincinnati. We were talking about the Eagles earlier, and I said that the Eagles have one of the best wide receiver tandems in the National Football League between A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith. The other one is in Cincinnati. It's Jamar Chase and T. Higgins, and then you pair them with Mike Gesicki, a guy who Joe Burrow was banging on the table for to be paid, a guy that Joe Burrow very much so trusts. And then you add in the conversation Chase Brown, who I don't think at the running back position, I don't think he's a sexy name because he was a 5th-round pick, but don't look now, he had almost 1,000 rushing yards this past season. So in this division, it's really highlighted by Jamar Chase, who I think is one of the 2 best wide receivers in the National Football League. It's really pick your poison between Jamar Chase and Justin Jefferson. And then you pair him with the ultimate 1B. I mean, Cincinnati has 2 1s. It's not a 1 and a 2. They have 2 1s between Jamar Chase and T. Higgins. So really because of them, I lean Cincinnati as the best skill position players in the AFC North.
I think you're right, but let me at least make a compelling case for the Ravens. The wide receiver room is better for the Bengals. There's nobody in the world that will dispute that. The wide receiver room is better for Cincinnati. I got Derrick Henry as my running back, and that's just such a wild difference maker still, even at his age. And then I got a tight end room that, whether it's Isaiah Likely or Mark Andrews, just feels like there's so much greatness there, but it's really Derrick Henry. Like I'm putting so much value
Derrick
in
Henry's
wins
unreal.
above replacement for Derrick Henry. Like that's where I'm almost, again, acquiescing that Jamar and T are better than anything the wide receiver is going to offer us for the Bengals. They wish they could have that level of dynamic play in that room. But man, Derrick Henry at least gives me pause for concern on just handing it to Cincinnati. I hear your argument. I think I'm going to be fair and balanced enough to say that I think you're right. But man, I don't know. Derrick Henry makes it tougher. What about head coach? Because I mean, if we're talking head coach, controversial take, I'm just gonna stick with Tomlin. Tomlin makes chicken salad all the time.
That's fair.
You know what I'm saying? Like I'm just gonna Tomlin's over here. Like I like my best coaches to be an episode of Chopped. They open up the basket and they're like, "What am I cooking with?" Right? Like so, if I'm Harbaugh, I'm opening up the basket. I'm like, I've got filet. I've got Lamar, the best ever. Like if I've or one of the best ever. If I've got Zach Taylor, I open up the basket and I've got just a bunch of quality ingredients that are unbelievable. Tomlin's making like great dishes with Spam. It might be partially his fault that he's got Spam, but he's cooking with Spam. Like he's got American cheese that's like government cheese like I grew up on and fried bologna, and he's got to make a 5-star Michelin star dish. Like Tomlin's my head coach pick.
You're not wrong. You are not wrong in the slightest, because I think the wonderful thing about Mike Tomlin is you always know what you're going to get. You know you're not going to have a losing season under Mike Tomlin. You know that as long as Mike Tomlin is your head football coach, you are going to win enough games to be relevant. You're going to be in the conversation. And I know that hasn't come in the form of playoff wins, but even when Pittsburgh hasn't had a certifiable, answer at the quarterback position, whether it was Ben Roethlisberger, who literally couldn't move his body, or Justin Fields, or this year with Aaron Rodgers in his 40-plus-year-old season, you know that Mike Tomlin's got us. We're good. there is a certain level of I think, just credit that we have to give Mike Tomlin for that. I'm with you. He's going to be wearing a gold jacket very here soon, but I will give a very fair argument to John Harbaugh. I think that the AFC North is full of great coaches, and it is John Harbaugh and it is Mike Tomlin. John Harbaugh, he's won a Super Bowl in Baltimore. John Harbaugh is such a consistent winner. John Harbaugh, I think too, yes, the Ravens have an excellent roster up and down the roster, but that doesn't discredit the kind of a coach that John Harbaugh is. It's, I think, a testimony to both Tomlin and Harbaugh that they've been able to stay in their respective positions for an extended period of time in a world where the shelf life of a coach is like milk. Like one bad season and you're all of a sudden on the hot seat. You're all of a sudden out of there. So I think the longevity of both Harbaugh and Tomlin are testaments to the kind of coaches that they are.
All right, what about drama in the division? Because we do love the big D drama on this show. I'm going to give you a controversial take. Drama, the biggest drama in this division belongs to the Pittsburgh Steelers. Look, I know where everybody's going to go, but I'm just saying, Aaron Rodgers. I mean, when this team starts hot, immediately, every show is going to say, oh, Aaron Rodgers headed to the Super Bowl? Are the Steelers Super Bowl contenders? Can the Steelers take down the Chiefs? That's going to be the narrative when they just float through just the soft-ass schedule that they start this season.
That's not drama.
And then they hit the meat. No, then they hit the meat. And all of a sudden, this entire thing implodes. And I believe the Steelers are going to finish with a losing record for the first time in Tomlin's career. You want to tell me that won't be by week 13, 14, it's going to be Aaron Rodgers every week on Pat McAfee's all we're going to talk about. And when is Mike Tomlin going to leave the Steelers? That's real drama that is just going to be shoved down our throats week in and week out by the middle of the season. If they're good, it's too much drama because they're not as good as people think they are. If they suck, it's too much drama because they were never as good as people thought they were. And all of a sudden we get drama both ways.
Oh man, they might win 8 games and go 8-9. The drama, the horror of it all. I'll go with the team that we've talked about every single day since we launched this program, and it is the Cleveland Browns. And I said in the NFC East, the most dramatic team, Jerry's team. Well, the most dramatic team is Shador's team. Because drama, whether he creates it or not, seems to follow Shador Sanders. And it really is, a product of people like us who talk about the sport for a living more than it is actually what Shador Sanders does. But no matter what happens with Shador, we're going to talk about it and it's going to be dramatic. And then you lump in the Deshaun Watson of it all. You lump in the fact that the Cleveland Browns seem to have no issue whatsoever with any sort of legal or character issues. There's come on down. You might not have a spot anywhere else in any other the 31 teams in the NFL. But if you got a rap sheet, you got a spot in Cleveland, Ohio. So I lean the Cleveland Browns. They're always dramatic. Every year they're dramatic. And this year is certainly no exception.
No, that's fair. All right, speaking of drama, we've got drama in the biggest possible way in the WNBA. What's it mean for the future of the league? We'll tell you next on Yahoo Sports Daily. It appears increasingly unlikely the WNBA and WNBA PA will reach a deal for a new collective bargaining agreement ahead of the October 31st deadline. There are multiple paths forward, including an extension. It is a wild time of collective bargaining for the WNBA, and it could get very complicated. Yahoo Sports Daily. She's Caroline Fenton. I'm Jason Fitz. And I want to stress something here. Yesterday, Caroline, I felt like I was yelling at people, stop listening to stupid people. When it comes to the WNBA, anyone that doesn't want to acknowledge nuance in this conversation probably isn't really qualified to have the conversation. I just want to start, most importantly, because what you see are a lot of people that are just screaming, well, WNBA players want to be paid what the NBA players are being paid. Let's be very clear. I've talked to people in the league. I've talked to players, current and past. Nobody's asking for that. They are, however, asking for a different rev split, basically, to simplify here, 50% of total money that comes into the NBA goes to the players as part of the CBA. The women want a better percentage, and acknowledging that it's not as simple as 50-50, there's negotiation happening. So it's not that they want to be paid the same as LeBron. It's that they want to be paid more of a percentage of what the league brings in revenue than they are currently being paid. It's just, I have to start, Caroline, with that nuance.
And I think that's a very important nuance, because if you believe that the WNBA players should not be paid more, then you're really telling on yourself. You're telling on yourself that you don't really understand the economics and the finances of the league, or you're telling on yourself that you just hate women. And if that's the case, then fine. Don't comment on the WNBA. Nobody is asking for, in the WNBA circles, for $50 million supermax contracts that are being signed by the stars in the NBA. The WNBA is, incredibly self-aware that their TV deal is not nearly as rich as the deal of the NBA, excuse me. What the WNBA is asking for is a significantly larger portion of the television revenue pie than they are getting. And it's because they're getting significantly more television revenue with this new TV deal than they were in the past. Now, what the WNBA is making right now is about 12% of their television revenue. The NBA makes 50%. The WNBA is asking for something that looks more reminiscent of the share the NBA is making than what they're making now. I mean, 12% is absolutely ridiculous. The MLS makes 40%, just to put that into context of another league that doesn't make nearly as much money as the NBA, Major League Baseball, NFL, so on and so forth. They're just asking for a larger portion of the pie, a pie that's getting much larger. They're asking for what they feel like they deserve for a league that is growing significantly more now than it ever has. We're getting 2 expansion teams next year in Toronto and Portland. And then we're getting teams in Philly. We're getting teams in Detroit. We're getting a team in Cleveland by 2030. All of those teams had to pay hefty expansion fees, $250 million and north of that. That's all money that goes to the league. That's all money and intrigue that's been created by what these players are doing and putting out on the court. And if you want to say, well, Caitlin Clark deserves all of that, of course, Caitlin Clark deserves a big credit for that. That what Caitlin Clark has done is unprecedented in the WNBA, but that's not really how things work. So, look, they just want
Caroline,
a
that's not how it works
of
in
larger
any
pie
sport.
that they're getting.
Like LeBron deserves more than he gets if you really want to look at the importance to the league. Like Patrick Mahomes deserves more than he gets if you want to look at importance to the league. That's just not the way it works.
And if people say, well, without Caitlin Clark, this wouldn't exist. Well, Caitlin Clark does exist. She's not retiring. She's not going away anytime soon. She's in the league.
It's also hard because everybody says, well, they've been losing money and now they're finally making right. Players don't need to worry about the past economics. Like we always say, contracts are not based on what you've done. It's based on what teams think you will do moving forward. Collective bargaining agreements not based on what has happened in the past. It's based on what will happen moving forward. That being said, Caroline, I just have to stress this. I mean, it says the league's lack of urgency leaves players wondering if it's focused on making the work or just running out the clock. Making this work is just running out the clock. A lockout of any sort, a work stoppage of any sort, I think would be catastrophic. I think it could actually kill the W. because there is such a loud narrative from people. There are a lot of people out there that have not watched a single second of women's basketball, but they just choose to yuck the yum every time, right? There's a whole group of people that have watched 2 seconds of it and they've decided they hate it, and then they want to bring their opinion so loudly to all of it that it creates this narrative that the WNBA is dying or not popular, or these athletes don't deserve it. These are all like loud, blown up narratives that are becoming real because they have so much amplification. If there is a work stoppage, then everybody out there that is anti-W will use this as a reason to decide that athletes are selfish, the teams don't care about their fans. It's already a backbreaker in well-established sports that are having just absolutely great runs. It is a backbreaker to have a work stoppage. To have one in the WNBA right now, I think it would kill momentum. I think it would kill casual fans. I think it would kill some level of interest in the sport. I think it would genuinely hurt the ability of every single player to make a living moving forward. So you got to figure it out. I want teams to be fair. I want players to be fair. I want everybody to get theirs. But most importantly, as a fan of what they're trying to do and as someone that watches the WNBA a lot, I want the thing to continue to grow. And I truly believe that a work stoppage would absolutely thwart that growth.
We will be talking about this. Myself and Cassandra Knightley will be talking about what a work stoppage could mean, the kind of the intricacies of the CBA. So that should be up on the Yahoo Sports YouTube page later this afternoon. Check it out. I think that the deadline at least comes in the offseason, right? Because we saw the Major League Baseball work stoppage and the lockout happen, and we didn't even get a postseason. And that was, detrimental to the league. And it was the long gone summer that really kind of brought everything back and, brought Major League Baseball really back. So the fall is at least the WNBA offseason. We wouldn't be missing playoffs. We wouldn't be missing a postseason. We wouldn't be missing actual games. But what it could do, though, is push back an expansion draft. So expansion drafts previously have happened in December. So if the work stoppage pushes the expansion draft back, then that just pushes everything else back. And, that could potentially, have, issues down the line. I think that what they could do, though, is have an extension. So the current CBA could be extended over the next couple of months. We had that in 2019 when the last CBA was negotiated. So there's at least options here. It's not just, okay, if they don't sign it by October 31st, then the WNBA goes completely black. So that's at least, a positive thing, that there are options, that if the league and the CBA, or excuse me, the league and the Players Union, the Players Association are willing to have an extension and are still continuing to have some of these conversations, it's not going to go completely dark. I just worry about the sense of urgency on the WNBA side, that maybe on the league side, they don't see as, as much value in paying a larger portion of a larger pie, and that there might just come to a crossroads that the WNBA isn't willing to pay for it, and the league isn't willing to take anything less. If we get to that point, I do think that that could potentially be detrimental to this league at a point that is so pivotal, and a point of such important growth, and a time that there's never been more investment and more excitement over this league than there is right now.
I am not a big superhero movie fan. Like I don't dislike them. I just don't usually go to them. And I saw the preview for the new Superman this summer, and I was like, man, I really want to go see Superman. So I went and I saw Superman, and I liked it. I liked it a lot. I haven't seen most of the other I think the last Superman I saw was the original Superman. So I got no point of reference. I went, I had a great time. I enjoyed Superman. I started looking at social media afterwards. Yeah, thank you. I looked at social media afterwards, and once the algorithm figured out that I'd seen Superman, I got every tweet, every Instagram, everything you could possibly get. And all I saw were just angry fans because they didn't like the direction this particular director took the Superman franchise. And what's interesting is I was talking to my buddies that are Superman fans, and I was like, hey, did you go see the movie? No, it sucks. If you didn't see it, how do you know it sucks? Well, I read about it. Everybody says it sucks. There is something to, in modern society, everybody read about it. I heard it sucks. It must suck. Unfortunately, there is a loud group of people that have decided, I've never hidden on this show the fact that, I'm not a big golf fanatic. We cover it because it's part of our job, but I'm not a big golf fanatic. I do not flock to social media every time there's a golf event to be like, golf sucks, golf sucks, golf sucks. I don't do that. But for whatever reason, there are so many people that want to do that about the W. My concern is, you're right. My concern is that there's not a level of urgency, and there's just enough volume to the you suck crowd that eventually people will read it, they'll hear it, and they'll think it's true even if they haven't checked it out. That's the unfortunate sort of byproduct of what social media has become, and that's why I'm so concerned. At the same time, I think we both agree, I would love for the players to be treated fairly and to get more of what they deserve in this process and to be able to make a living doing what they love, just at what expense?
That's what concerns me. And look, the WNBA is in an incredibly pivotal period that they cannot reach a point where everybody is investing and everything is growing and you're expanding the league and you have more exposure and more money than you ever have before. And then now all of a sudden it stops. And then all of a sudden it's halted. And then all of a sudden, a few years down the line, all of those expansion teams aren't healthy enough to stick around. And then you go back and you retreat to, the league at a certain point where it used to be. I'm not saying that's going to happen. I just say that I'm fearful of that happening. And the WNBA has to understand how critical and how sensitive of a time this is in a league in its infancy and in a league that is growing like crazy.
Check out the Yahoo Sports YouTube channel for more on it later today. Coming up, WNBA players trying to get paid. So's Jacoby Myers, and now he wants out. We'll tell you about it next. Raiders wide receiver Jacoby Myers recently met with team brass and requested to be traded. The team, citing his value, said they had no plans to do so. Myers and the team attempted to negotiate a new contract but could not come to terms. Fenton, Jason Fitz, Yahoo Sports Daily. I can't have nice things. I've never hidden my Raiders fandom. Everybody knows it. And I tweeted this yesterday and, got some backlash from some Raiders fans and some understanding from others. It's just never easy. And the funny thing is, Jacoby Myers requesting a trade, that's the new thing. Everybody's doing it in the NFL this offseason. I'm not sure how much value there is. But the fact is, when you're about 10 days away from the regular season and you find out who is going to be your wide receiver one this year, has requested a trade, wants a new deal, he's in the last year of his money, all of these things, it's just complicated. It's exhausting how complicated it always seems to be a fan. And Christian Wilkins a couple months ago suddenly gone from the team. This is an off-season tradition. Every single year there's a weirdness that happens around the team. Somebody's unhappy. I always go back to one very, very, very prominent player for the Raiders that I was talking to a few years ago. And I said, man, it's been a wild year for you guys. And he laughed, just looked at me and he laughed. And he said, wild year? Every year's been a wild year. It is always like this here. There are certain organizations that just swim in a sea of dysfunction. And until you win a bunch of games, it's the only thing you talk about. And it reminds me of how incredible Jaden Daniels' work has been for Washington, because for once we stop talking about dysfunction. I can only hope that somehow, some way, all of this works out. It'll be fine, whatever. But man, as a fan, Caroline, it just rips your heart out when yet again there's another piece of drama that has nothing to do with anything on the field, and you're just sitting here saying, I need to get to games, and hopefully we win some.
Yeah, there have been so many times where I've said about my teams, like, why can't you just be normal? Like, why can't you just be easy? But I think that is a sentiment more applicable to the Las Vegas Raiders more than any other team in sports. Like, why can't the Raiders just be normal, Fitz? Like, why can't they just do things that don't make you think, like, what? Like, is that an Onion article? Like, is that a real headline that is real news reported by real people about a real football team? But Fitz, I just walk me through this, because I was surprised by this as just an observer and someone who covers the league, an observer of the Raiders, but you are a diehard Raiders fan. Like, were you surprised by this? What was the reaction? Like, walk me through all of your stages as a Raiders fan and your approach to this Jakobi Meyers news.
Well, Jacoby's in the last year of his deal. He had over 1,000 yards receiving last year, and after Devontae left, he became a number one. And I'm not saying he's a world beater. He's not Jamar Chase, but he's a very good wide receiver. And I think he wants to get paid like it. What do we see now? Guys want more money, more years, more terms. And, it's not surprising to me that he wants the Raiders to make a commitment. For the Raiders, they need him. Now, you can argue that they've drafted Jack Bech to try and step in and eventually grow to be Jakobi Meyers' replacement. And big news yesterday to some, they signed Amari Cooper. But Amari Cooper is not coming in to fill the Jakobi role. Amari's coming in because they always knew they were going to bring in a veteran wide receiver. That's been one of the reports and rumors around the team for months, is that they were going to bring in more veteran presence since they have so many young guys in the room. Maybe Amari has something left in the tank, but I think for me, the surprise on this is you're about to go into a season where your offense is expected to do everything. Chip Kelly's expected to be, as the highest paid offensive coordinator in the NFL, a brilliant person coming up with great ways to get guys open all over the place. You got Ashton Genty, you got Brock Bowers, you have these weapons. It should leave an opportunity for a number one wide receiver like Jakobi to feast. Unfortunately, when you see this, it just tells you that things aren't all great, and that's the heartbreaking part about this, is that you really want everybody coming into the season feeling like they're all on the same page. This takes a little of that away.
And look, I know you as a Raiders fan, and probably Raiders fans everywhere, collectively all have to just buckle up your seatbelts every single year for what's to come. So I know that you're ready for that. You have to be. Do you feel any different about this team today or after you heard the news than you did before? Like, are you even more sour on your team than you were before?
I think if Jakobi isn't playing or isn't 100% of himself, this team wins less games. I do think there's he is still a difference maker for this organization, and Amari doesn't replace that. It would take more than that to replace him. So it makes me nervous. But also, I think, Caroline, like, this is the trend of the modern NFL, right? Like, we started today talking about Terry McLaurin, and we've talked about Cam Hayward and his hold-in, and Trey Hendrickson and his hold-in. And, like, this isn't necessarily a hold-in situation, but over the offseason, we saw Myles Garrett say, I want to be traded, until he got money. We saw Max Crosby at least hinting to the fact that maybe he wanted to be traded, and said, we'll see. And then he got more money. Like, at some point, I think the only leverage players have is, I want more money. What becomes interesting to me is, does it eventually become boy who cries wolf? Like, at some point, a team is going to turn around, and maybe it is the Raiders, and say, you know what? The way our offense is built, we're not going to pay you more money. So you have the choice. You can play, you can not play. Certainly, Jakobi Meyers sitting out a full season, for example, wouldn't make the news that somebody like Micah Parsons would, right? So if you're the Raiders, maybe they are the one that finally buries their heels and digs their heels in and says, you can't get past this point. But there's going to have to be a pushback point at some point from teams in the NFL that say, hey, it's cool that you want to be traded. It's cool that you want a renegotiation. We're simply not going to do it. That's when things this game of chicken gets much more interesting, if we ever actually see a team win the game of chicken. And I'm not sure we do. It feels like eventually teams always just give some more money, the player comes back, and everybody pretends they're happy.
And we're just back on the merry-go-round again, but it is the off season of wide receivers wanting more money. Look, I get it. Everybody wants more money. I totally understand. Quickly, because I know we have to go. Jakobi Meyers is a Raider this year, yes or no?
Yes, he's a Raiders this year. He's a Raider this year. He's not a Raider the year after. I think this is the beginning of the end with Jakobi, but he's got to come in and have a big year. All right, it's a big day around this show. Who's got that dog in him? We'll explain it to you next. Yahoo Sports Daily. Happy 5th birthday to my perfect princess, Annabelle. Oh, that's then the Humane Society.
She is a perfect
now.
princess.
Yeah, she is. She is. Like, the funny thing is she probably just heard the word perfect princess, and then all of a sudden her head is perked up downstairs. That's Annabelle. Look, I know I'm out here, shilling for my dog. I'm not the only one, Caroline Fenton, because you've gotten into the oh, look at that. After 4 months of saying I wouldn't, you foster failed. This is why I never foster.
I
because,
foster
I know
failed.
if I foster one, I'll keep.
Yeah.
Okay.
I fostered for a long time, and so I fostered through Wags and Walks when I lived in Nashville. Shout out to Wags and Walks. They're wonderful. There's a location in Los Angeles and New York as well as Nashville. So if you're interested, highly, highly, highly recommend trying to foster. And I told myself, like, look, fostering is the perfect kind of in between. I just didn't feel like I was in a position in my life where I could adopt a dog, but I thought I'll foster for a few weeks at a time. I'll do something good. I'll feel good about myself. I'll kind of, fill that hole, that fuzzy friend hole that existed in my life. And so I fostered several dogs. It was wonderful. It was hard to give them up every single time, but I did it and I felt good about myself. Then Cece came into my life and I fostered her. We fostered her for 4 months and I kept telling myself, no, we can't, no, we can't, no, we can't do it, until they called me and told me that they found a perfect couple that could potentially foster or adopt her. And I said, no, tell them no. Tell them she's taken for. Tell them she's accounted for. And I adopted her. It was the best decision I have ever made. She's perfect. I love her. Our home is complete.
That is, see, I love every ounce of that. I'm a big adopt, don't shop guy, but as long as the dog finds a perfect home, that's all that matters in the entire world. And we're saying all of this because it's National Dog Day, okay? And it's a day dedicated to the bestest boys and girls that deserve all of the pets in the entire world. So we asked you guys for some pictures of your dogs, and you guys came through, by the way, like best Twitter content I can ever remember. We'll get to those, but first,
instant serotonin.
We start with some. Oh yeah, absolutely. We'll start with some sports dogs. We want to go through our top 3 sports dogs, and this is, it can be however you want to take that. Caroline, I'll let you go first. Your number 3 sports dog is.
We talk a lot about good boys, and there are a lot of good boys out there, 100%, but there are also some very good girls out there. So I will start it off with Texas A&M's mascot, Reveille. She's gorgeous. She's beautiful. She is a girl. Do not get that twisted. She's a woman in STEM. She's a woman in sports. She's a woman that can do anything. She's beautiful. She's regal. Look at her there. Her legs are crossed. In that photo, she is a very demure and proper young lady. I love her. She's beautiful. I actually got the chance to meet her in person when I was on the field at the Texas A&M LSU game a couple of years ago in College Station. She is precious. I love the traditions at Texas A&M. Yes, they're weird, but that's what makes them great. So shout out to Reveille, a good girl.
So floofy. She's just perfectly floofy. I just want to
so
grab the
floofy.
neck. Okay. That's it. All right, I'll go with my number 3 dog, the opposite of floofy. I'm going with Uga. And look, this is not a hot take here. Like, a good one. Like, you just talk about a snot-filled, like, slobbering, just little fatty that you just want to get your hands on. Like, in every perfect way. I've had the opportunity a couple of times to get close to Uga, and there's something like regal when Uga walks by. It's amazing to see the players, the cheerleaders, the fans. Everybody stops when Uga's in the neighborhood. The whole world stops, and there's something perfectly slobbery about him. There's perfect. It's the bulldog. It's the scratchability. Again, it's that little neck roll. I just want to get my hands on. I just want to roll.
Squeeze him. What I love about Uga is he's someone's pet. That Uga isn't just the mascot at Georgia. He is a Georgia family's pet. And they bring Uga every single week in like an air-conditioned little, own little trailer. It's climate controlled. He has a full game day, tradition and a full game day routine. He eats a certain thing. His little house on the field is climate controlled. Like, Uga is a bougie dog.
All right, let's go to your number 2 dog. Who do you have next, speaking of bougie?
I have, the one thing about dogs that isn't totally and completely perfect is the fact that they don't stick around for nearly as long as we would like them to. So I'll give credit to Ben Herbstreit, who unfortunately we lost last year, but Ben Herbstreit went on the road with Kirk Herbstreit, of course, for College Game Day, and Ben made plenty of appearances on social media and on the show. He was in the booth for so many games that Kirk Herbstreit was calling, and I know that traveling and being on the road as much as Kirk Herbstreit is difficult, and having a pal with you makes it just that much more doable and makes it feel that much more at home. So shout out to Ben Herbstreit. I think we all fell in love with Ben a little bit throughout his time on game day.
Beautiful moment for him and for Kirk. I'll give you my number 2 dog, Smokey, somebody you know particularly well around Tennessee. But Smokey, not only a great dog, Smokey also Smokey. A great mascot. Like, not every mascot dog comes out the right way. Smokey absolutely does. And plus, he's got the long ears. Like, it's just, again, we're talking about grabbability with the long ears. And like, it's so just bundled up and just also just always so perfectly behaved. So Smokey's my number 2. Who's your number 1?
My number 1 goes to a sweet angel bulldog. We have plenty of great bulldogs in sports. I used to go Butler Blue. You know, Butler Blue is the mascot, I feel like, of every single March once March Madness comes around. Look at him in his chain and his car. He has plenty of friends, like a John Halliburton, that he can make on the sidelines. Just look at him. He's regal, absolutely regal, and just has this face that you just want to squeeze. So Butler Blue is my number 1. Damn good dog.
One of my favorite days was when he just crawled in my lap and laid there. Okay, my number 1 dog, I'm going with the controversial take here. Going with controversial because where I am, Jonathan the Husky. Look, UConn Husky.
Oh, I love Jonathan.
Huskies are so beautiful anyway. The official mascot of UConn takes the job seriously. You see him nibbling there. Jonathan the Husky is always so perfectly well-behaved. Plus, he's on everything. Like, just the face of everything from the derpy husky to the fun husky to the intimidating husky. Like, there is a legacy for Jonathan the Husky that has mattered so much to Connecticut basketball, men's and women's. It just hits different, and he's always perfectly behaved, and he gives kisses. So absolutely, Jonathan comes in number 1, maybe because I just feel like he's a little less appreciated than some of the rest. We appreciate some of your submissions. We asked you guys to get in some of your best dog picks out there. See some of you guys watching the show and hanging out with us on social media. We'll get some scrolling here. We'll see us scrolling, go through some of the best pictures that we have from you guys submitting. We should do this more often, by the way, because it gets us a ton of different dogs. They're going to pull them up for us here. We'll get some of the pictures from some of the users.
No,
that's
my Cece.
Coming in big.
She sits next to me during every single show. Oh, and our friend Dylan Rockford with his perfect dog. Oh, the spots on that dog.
Carter's a good. Oh, absolutely. Look at the size of all these. Like all these dogs look like they would play so well together. We got perfect ones coming.
I don't think my dog would play very well with others, but
Dozer would play.
A bulldog. Dozer would play good.
Cece could handle it. I believe. S'more is an adorable name, so you get credit for adorable naming.
Shout out to our producer, Hutton Jackson.
Yeah, S'more. Yeah, and the wearing the shirt, good. That's something I could never get Annabelle to do. She would never wear the shirt. That's not a chance. What else we got here? Oh my
gosh, what a beautiful dog.
Yeah, that's a funny thing. Like, I got to be honest, y'all, like, there are ugly babies. I have yet to see any ugly dogs. Like, these dogs are all beautiful, every single one of them. And if you 100%. Think that there are no such thing as ugly babies, you need better friends, more accurate friends.
Blaze the beach
Blaze.
Baby. Totally worth it. Bringing a dog to the beach is totally worth all of the car cleanup and the sand that goes everywhere. Worth every single second there. Oh, no, that is a sleepy little baby.
You know, the next time social media we should just Yahoo Sports Daily should just do this. Like, when there's just a tough day. Look, old man Jed on his 13th.
Old man Jed, happy 13th birthday, Jed.
Happy 13th, and appreciate that. Like, when you get to 13, that's such a beautiful thing. Like, I've been lucky enough to have multiple dogs get up to that age, and it's just such an absolute, delight to get that much life with them. That's really incredible, really incredible. And look at Nico and LMA is a
the sun and the moon
for children. Grand dog Peaches, they've been babysitting. I mean. That's incredible. I
want to go to their house.
Yeah.
If they need anyone else to babysit Peaches in the future, let me know. I'm available.
Boris hanging out. He looks like a Boris too. Like, he's got that sort of like Boris. Like, he's got that sort of official look. That feels.
There
really
are
good.
some names that just absolutely they just work. Oh, okay.
Maggie feeling the
Maggie
season.
loves
I'm
to
in for
play
this.
dress up.
I'm in for Maggie getting a little dress up opportunity. Good for Maggie.
Love that.
Oh,
Bailey.
look at that.
Oh,
Look at that. All right. We appreciate
This
you
is
guys
just the
hanging
best
out with
way
us.
to end the
Mostly, we
day.
appreciate all these dog pictures. We'll continue to show them. Keep sending them on social media. Tomorrow, we'll be back with you right here, 9 to 11 a.m. Eastern. Thanks for watching Yahoo Sports Daily. See you in the morning.